Imagine walking through the doors of the most famous residence in America, not as a president, not as a diplomat, not as a world leader, but as a dog. In 1989, when George H.W. Bush became the 41st President of the United States, his English Springer Spaniel Millie became one of the most famous dogs in America. She wasn't just living with the first family, she was living inside the White House. And before long, Millie would become famous for something almost nobody could have predicted. She would become a best-selling author.
Millie's real name was Mildred Kerr Bush. She was an English Springer Spaniel, a breed known for its energy, intelligence, and affectionate nature. Millie had been part of the Bush family before they moved into the White House, and when George H.W. Bush became president in January 1989, Millie came with them. Suddenly, her home wasn't an ordinary American house, it was the White House.
For Millie, the White House wasn't simply a place to live. It became her playground. She could wander through the historic building, explore its corridors, spend time on the lawn, and accompany the first family during their daily lives. She even became familiar with the people who worked inside the building. Millie had something few dogs in America could ever experience. She was living at the center of American political history while doing something very important: being a dog.
Then, in 1989, something special happened. Millie gave birth to a litter of puppies. One of those puppies was named Spot Fetcher, and that puppy would eventually have his own place in presidential history. Spot would later become a White House dog during the presidency of George W. Bush. So Millie's story wasn't only about one famous dog. Her family would continue the presidential pet tradition for another generation. Think about everything Millie could see: presidents, diplomats, Secret Service agents, foreign leaders, reporters, and some of the most important events of the early 1990s. She was surrounded by history every day. But Millie didn't understand politics. She didn't care about elections. She didn't care about political parties. To Millie, the White House was simply home. And that innocent perspective would soon become the foundation of an extraordinary book. First Lady Barbara Bush had a deep affection for Millie. And she had another passion too: literacy. So an unusual idea emerged. What if Millie could tell the story of life inside the White House? Of course, Millie couldn't actually write. Instead, Barbara Bush wrote the book as if Millie were telling the story. The result was something unlike almost any presidential book that had come before. It was called Millie's Book, as dictated to Barbara Bush. In 1990, Millie's book was published, and something unexpected happened. People loved it. The book gave readers a playful, behind-the-scenes look at life around the Bush family and the White House. But this time, the story was being told from the perspective of the family dog. Millie had gone from presidential pet to literary celebrity. Then came the moment nobody could have predicted. Millie's book reached #1 on the New York Times nonfiction bestseller list. It wasn't simply selling a few copies. It became a major publishing success. Guinness World Records later recognized Millie's book as the best-selling book by a canine author. By 1991, Guinness reported approximately 400,000 copies sold and 29 weeks on the bestseller list. And suddenly, America had a best-selling author who walked on 4 legs. But there was something even more meaningful about the book's success. The royalties were directed toward Barbara Bush's Literacy Foundation. So Millie's unusual literary career helped support a cause that mattered deeply to the First Lady: helping families improve their literacy. According to contemporary reporting, the book had generated about $1.1 million in royalties by July 1991, benefiting the Barbara Bush Foundation for Family Literacy. Millie wasn't just entertaining readers. Her fame was helping support literacy.
Millie also became known around the White House for her personality. One White House staff member later recalled that Millie became surprisingly good at riding the elevator. Someone only needed to press the button for her. But one day, the elevator stopped on the wrong floor. Millie heard Barbara Bush's voice and took off. She ran down the polished marble hallway, her legs slipped out from under her, and she slid several yards across the floor, ending up right at Barbara Bush's feet. Even inside the White House, Millie could still be, unmistakably, a dog.
In 1993, the Bush family left the White House. But Millie's presidential story wasn't quite over. She returned with the family to their life outside Washington. Her legacy, however, was already secured. She had become one of the most recognizable presidential pets in American history, and her puppy Spot would eventually return to the White House years later.
Millie lived for several more years after the Bush presidency. She eventually spent her later years with the Bush family in Kennebunkport, Maine. Then, in 1997, Millie died at the age of 12. Her life had begun as that of an ordinary family dog, but it ended as one of the most unusual canine stories in American history. Millie never gave a political speech. She never signed a treaty. She never ran for office. And she certainly never sat down at a typewriter to write a book. But somehow, a little English Springer Spaniel became a White House celebrity, a mother, a media star, and the author of a #1 best-selling book. Her story reminds us that sometimes the most memorable characters in history aren't the people standing behind the podium. Sometimes they're the ones sitting quietly at their feet. Her name was Millie, and for a brief moment, America's most famous best-selling author had 4 paws.